Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I have my predictions for every single monster that I predict will be in the base game of Monster Hunter Wilds. Before we begin, I'd like to thank GameSir for sponsoring today's video. More on that later. I think it's safe to say that Monster Hunter Wilds is going to be the biggest game of the series. We see this through the presentation of the game, the designs of the monsters, the size of the semi-open world maps, the new and revamped mechanics of the game, and the pure scale that they are going for with this one. And without a doubt, I believe the monster roster should live up to that grand scale that Wilds is striving to achieve. But in order to predict what monsters will be added to Monster Hunter Wilds, first we have to go through every monster that's already been confirmed. So, starting with the new monsters, we have Deshagama, which is a very large pack-hunting fang beast that resembles a bear. Balahara, a snake-like leviathan that burrows itself underneath the sand. Chatacabra, a small amphibian that covers its arms in saliva and acts as the introductory monster for Wilds. Lalabarina, a brand new Temnoceran that can sometimes resemble a flower. Raidao, the apex of the Windward Plains, and an electric flying wyvern that utilizes the electricity of its environment to unleash devastating lightning attacks. And he's also a railgun. Uthduna, an enormous leviathan monster that seems to resemble a whale of sorts. It rules the Scarlet Forest as its apex predator. Chemetries, a flaming rooster-like brute wyvern that scavenges on bodies within the plains. Arkveld, the flagship of the game, is an extinct species, a fierce flying wyvern, and seems very territorial, fighting any monster in its way. It may be the apex of all the regions together, or of an unrevealed locale. Rompopolo, whatever that thing is. Ajarakan, a fang beast with a fiery spirit, appears to never back down from a fight, could be related to Rajang in some way. The Black Flame, now known as New Udra, is a fiery octopus-inspired monster that uses the oil on its body to erupt opponents into flames as it rules the Oilwell Basin. It might be a new monster class, but as of now, that's not yet confirmed. Irabami, a monster that was first showcased in the Switch X trailer all the way back, is a medium-sized leviathan that can float in the sky. And lastly, Jindahad, an extremely large leviathan monster similar in size to Kalv Tarath. It is the apex of the Iceshard cliffs and seems to be very interesting, having a sort of biomechanical look to it. And for returning monsters, we have Rathalos and Rathian, who are the face of the whole series, Kongalala, a goofy little guy that loves to sleep and fart, Yankutku, a small bird wyvern that is a cakewalk on its own, but in this iteration of Monster Hunter is going to group up together within Wilds, Gypsaros, yet another bird wyvern, yet this one gives Zitsuyaku a run for its money as the flashiest monster. Gravios, a large rock-covered monster that uses lava attacks to burn its enemies to a crisp. Nerscylla, the first Temnoceran introduced into the series, finally makes its return. Gore Magala, which is basically a dragon that gives monster rabies, which is really cool, is going to flesh out the gameplay in Wilds a lot with his frenzy mechanic. And lastly, Blangonga, who is shown briefly in a Japanese trailer, which you guys can see right above here. There were also two monster variants spotted in the launch trailer as well, seemingly being the Wilds exclusive variants of Rathalos and Arkveld. Maybe there'll be more variants as well, but we'll get to that later. And Mizutsune was also revealed, but that is for a title update and not the base roster, so we're not counting her in this roster for now. So that brings the revealed large monster count to a total of 22, or 24 if you count the two monster variants as of yet. But we can't just go guessing monsters at random. Capcom never randomly picks monsters for their games. While it may feel random, they have a pattern. The roster needs to be well crafted to suit the atmosphere, themes, and gameplay of the game that they are in. But you guys as hunters also require well-crafted gear for the perfect hunt, on top of a well-rounded monster roster. That is where today's sponsor, GameSir, will help you guys out. GameSir has hooked me up with their brand new Tarantula Pro controller for PC, Nintendo Switch, iOS, and Android. and it is practically the ultimate tool for any aspiring monster hunter. With extremely responsive triggers, 9 mappable buttons, comfortable grips, and a fully customizable RGB lights in this controller feels like an extension of your hunter's arsenal. This is hands down the best controller I have ever used. With its long battery life, intuitive design, and a wide range of customization options, it's perfect for not just Monster Hunter, but for any game. The responsive triggers, including features tailored specifically for racing games, make every input feel smooth and precise. No matter what I'm playing, the Tarantula Pro has 100% become my go-to controller. Whether you're clashing with Fatalis or just starting out your hunter's journey in Wilds, the Tarantula Pro lets you dodge, attack, and unleash devastating combos with pinpoint accuracy. I personally love how customizable it is, especially the 2 buttons on the back. I'm able to remap the buttons in seconds if I want to optimize for a new playstyle or switch up the weapon that I am using. With Wilds just on the horizon before its release, what better time to gear up and prepare for the hunt? So if you're looking to elevate your hunting experience, check out the link in the description and pinned comment below. Trust me, you'll thank yourself when you're taking on the biggest challenges Monster Hunter has to offer. Alright, now that we've geared up properly, let's get back to the Wilds roster. As I was saying, Capcom just doesn't throw monsters in without reason. They aim for a perfect balance of theme, ecology, and gameplay, while also adhering to a certain set of criteria they have set for the game. To make my predictions as realistic as possible, I've come up with some criteria of my own. First off, Wilds appears to be taking a more grounded approach to its monster designs. Therefore, I'm going to refrain from adding more outlandish monsters, like Geismagorm, Bishatin, or Valstrax. That leads on to our next piece of criteria: no Elder Dragons, at least not for the base game. Capcom have expressed in multiple interviews that they are not focusing on Elder Dragons for the base game of Wilds, but I imagine we'll get some in title updates and DLC, as we have never had a Monster Hunter game without any Elders, but for now, none in the base roster. So how many monsters will be in the game? After analyzing the statistics from previous Monster Hunter titles, we can assume that based on the speculated 5 to 6 years of development Wild has, it will definitely be larger than World. Looking at the base numbers for every mainline game at launch, we can see that an average is around 40. Now, this isn't a concrete number, but I believe that 40 is a great number for the base roster of Wilds, given how much is expanding and changing up the gameplay loop of Monster Hunter. So for these predictions, we'll stick to a base roster of 40 monsters. Every Monster Hunter game has new monsters, to keep the game feeling fresh and to expand on their universe. With that being said, that means we want to hit a balance of new and returning monsters in this roster, because if we have too many new monsters, it's going to feel detached from previous fans. Vice versa, if there's too many returning monsters, it's not going to feel unique enough, and it's just going to feel like it's the same thing over and over again. With that being said, we want to hit a balance of new and returning monsters in this roster. Taking a look at the previous 2 titles, we can see that the average is around 20, give or take, for new monsters. This fits the roster very well, but I believe because Capcom are pushing Wilds to the rest of the world more than any previous title, I think that they are wanting to create less new monsters, but to make each one more appealing than they would be normally. And since they're trying to appeal to modern audiences around the world, most of them aren't going to have played older titles, so I feel that they'll also put a heavy emphasis on older returning monsters that haven't made an appearance in World or Rise. With that all out of the way, let's get to the predictions. Naturally, we begin with the Windward Plains. This locale is a mix of a vast plains as well as a desert. Like every locale, the weather will change, but here, it will become a raging thunderstorm. Currently, we know of 6 monsters that are present in this region, those being Rathalos, Deshagama, Balahara, Chatacabra, Chemetris, and of course, the apex of this region, Raidao. So far, we have a nice balance of monsters, consisting of 2 flying wyverns, an amphibian, a leviathan, a brute wyvern, and even a fanged beast. And I want to keep with this, so my first picks for this region are going to be Celtis and Celtis Queen, two Neopterans. They are an insect-like monster duo that in previous games have even had a desert variant. I think for wilds, these Celtises have adapted to the harsh climate of the plains, giving extra spice to this environment while sticking with the ecological lore. Currently, there's also no invader monsters, so let's fix that with the Pinecone Wyvern himself, Seregios. Let's be honest, he fits perfectly into wilds design-wise, has a very unique model and skeleton, and would fit the invader role perfectly. Next up, we have the beautiful Scarlet Forest, a luscious rainforest locale filled with an abundance of unique and flavorful life. Home to the Lalabarina, Congalala, Yankatku, and the apex of this region being the massive Athaduna. This is the biome with the most opportunities for new and returning monsters due to the sheer amount of monsters that could call this place home. First up, to no one's surprise, the highly requested Lagiacrus would fit perfectly here. I imagine that would be an apex level fight similar to the likes of Athaduna, using the inaccessible water areas around it to stay true to the original underwater fight without there actually being any real underwater combat present in the game. Another monster that would call this place home would be Plesioth. Now, this monster has a bad reputation for the massive hitboxes it had in previous titles, but Wilds can resolve this, and I believe Wilds could spice up the fight with some new and exciting moves for the only good Byzantine Wyvern in the entire series. The last returning monster I predict for the Scarlet Forest would be Malfesio. Now, this monster just fits perfectly. Look at the design of this monster and tell me with a straight face it would not be perfect for this locale. And with its unique ability to reverse hunter inputs, it adds some difficulty to the fight for hunters to overcome. There is just so much potential that Capcom could use to truly make Malfesio stand out among the rest. The final monster that I predict for the Scarlet Forest is actually a new monster. Now, we haven't actually received a new Bird Wyvern, Neopteran, Fanged Wyvern, Pisking Wyvern, or Carapacian yet, and I think that a new monster would fill the spot very well, adding to the huge variety Wild seems to be having. Personally, I would go with a Neopteran or Carapacian, but any of them would be amazing picks. Then we have the Oilwell Basin, a unique and fiery biome that is covered in oil slips, that when the Everforge becomes activated, turns this locale into a fiery hell. So far, we have the amazingly designed Rumpopolo, Ajarican, and Black Flame, or Nuadra, revealed for new monsters. However, there's also been two returning monsters confirmed for this locale as well, being Gravios and Rathian. I don't believe that we'll get any more new monsters for the Basin. However, this locale opens up a perfect opportunity for Agnactor to return. Agnactor is a fiery Leviathan monster that is a 3-stage fight. And this fits with the design principles that Capcom are striving for in Wilds, giving unique gameplay as well as adding variety to spice up the roster. Now onto the Iceshard Cliffs. We already have 5 confirmed monsters, that being Hirabami, Nursilla, Gypsaros, Blangonga, and the apex of the region, Jindahad. For returning monsters, I think that they should be bringing back Gammoth, Gossarog, Fulgur Anjanath, and Zamtrios. They would just be perfect. And while there are 3 Fang Beasts with Blangonga and the 2 other I think should be added here, each one is completely different. And with the addition of Fulgur Anjanath and Zamtrios alongside the other monsters, I think this could make a very, very unique and flavorful locale. For the final locale, I think it'll be the locale that Arkveld, the flagship of the game, originates from. This could be a similar biome to Elder's Recess of sorts, or maybe a half cave, half mountainous biome, something like that. I struggled with this one a lot actually. At first, I thought maybe it could be an underground cave, similar to the likes of Ark Aberration. But then I began diving deeper into the lore that we know so far from the game. Something that I completely glanced over was the fact that Arkveld was in fact an extinct species. And it appears that Nata's people, the ones who we see get attacked by Arkveld in the 4th trailer, have some sort of connection to him. So I imagine this is the locale that Arkveld resides in, because there is something connecting him to Nata's people. Maybe they imprison Arkveld there for a long time. This is the most likely option in my opinion, because there was this piece of art floating around which features Arkveld being chained up, perhaps resulting in his chain-like appendages being created while being imprisoned. So I believe that this final locale will be where Arkveld was held by Nata's people for hundreds or maybe even thousands of years. And if Arkveld is an extinct species, I don't think it's too unlikely that other monsters here could be imprisoned to an extinct species like Arkveld as well. They are likely the variants we even saw in the launch trailer here with that weird blue stuff on Rathalos and Arkveld. Maybe we could see more of these variants as well. With that being said, I believe that there will be 5 extinct species in this environment. One obviously being Arkveld himself, another being a second new monster in this locale, perhaps another cephalopod monster, as they wouldn't want to just throw away all the work they did for rigging only one monster being New Udra. While the other extinct monsters are variants, one being the Rathalos variant we've already seen, and 2 others I predict being a Monoblos variant and an Odo-Garen variant. This will give the environment extra variety while still keeping the other monsters in the roster fresh and exciting. I imagine that this is also the biome we'll see Gore Magala in as well, or perhaps he will be a monster that simply appears in every environment. Actually, Gore being in every environment makes the most sense, because that would allow him to spread his frenzy virus anywhere. Imagine a frenzied Arkveld, or Raydao, or Jindahad. That would be awesome. Obviously, we also have the final boss of the game, which I can't really predict a whole lot about, but I feel it's going to be connected to the changing environments of the game, perhaps being the sole reason the weather changing mechanic in each locale exists. And those are my predictions regarding the Monster Hunter Wilds roster. I think it's safe to say that no matter how this roster turns out for Wilds, it's already looking promising, and I'm really excited to see how these predictions turn out, because I feel that if my predicted roster would make the launch of the game perfect, especially with the addition of Mizutsune in a very close title update. And even if none of this is right, I cannot contain my excitement for this game, so keep an eye out for tons of content and streams when it finally releases. What do you guys think about my predictions? Do you think that this would be a good roster? What other monsters would you like me to add to it? Is there any you would take out of my roster? I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on it down below. Again, a huge thank you to GameSir for sponsoring today's video, and check out the link in the description and pinned comment below if you want to level up your Hunter's Arsenal with their amazing Tarantula Pro controller. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, I'll see you all in the next one.